Ruler once she even complained that Sarah's fire department volunteer parking placard was an unapproved vehicle modification. The woman was relentless. Things really escalated when Sarah scheduled a fire safety drill for our neighborhood. She'd gotten all the proper permits from the city, notified the HOA board in writing, even put flyers in everyone's mailboxes 2 weeks in advance. The drill was supposed to demonstrate proper fire extinguisher use, evacuation procedures, and basic fire suppression techniques that homeowners could use before the department arrived. Real community service stuff, but Patricia saw it differently. This is completely inappropriate, she denounced at the HOA meeting the week before the drill. We cannot have people running around playing with water during a drought advisory. What kind of example does that set? Sarah had calmly explained that the fire department would be using their own water truck for most demonstrations, and any hose usage would be minimal and educational. The other board members seemed satisfied, but Patricia's face had turned this interesting shade of purple. Mark my words, she'd said, pointing a manicured finger at Sarah. I'll be watching every drop of water you use, 1 gallon over the approved amount, and I'm calling the authorities. Sarah just smiled and said she looked forward to seeing Patricia at the drill. I knew that smile. It was the same one she used to give rookie firefighters right before they realized they'd signed up for the training session from hell. The day of the drill arrived a beautiful Saturday morning in late September. The fire department had set up in the cul-de-sac at the end of our street, with Captain Rodriguez overseeing everything. About 30 neighbors had shown up, mostly families with kids who were excited to see the fire truck up close. Sarah was in her element, demonstrating proper extinguisher technique and letting kids try on firefighter helmets. I was helping set up the next demonstration station when I noticed Patricia on her porch, phone in hand, watching everything like a hawk. She'd been there all morning, hadn't even pretended to participate, just stood there waiting for her moment. That moment came when Sarah moved to the backyard fire suppression demonstration. This was the part where she'd show homeowners how to use a standard garden hose with a foam attachment to slow down a small fire until the professionals arrived. She'd hooked up our hose to demonstrate proper technique, explaining how the foam solution the department provided was environmentally safe and actually used less water than straight hosing. I was filming the demonstration for the department's training archives when I heard Patricia's voice, shrill and triumphant. 911, I need to report illegal water usage and a public disturbance. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Patricia was actually calling the cops on an official fire department safety drill. She was pacing her porch now, gesticulating wildly as she spoke into her phone. There's a woman here, flagrantly violating our drought restrictions, spraying water everywhere. She claimed to have some kind of permit, but I know that's a lie. Please send someone immediately before she wastes any more of our precious resources. Several neighbors had noticed the commotion and were starting to murmur among themselves. Sarah, professional as always, just continued her demonstration, though I could see the slight tension in her shoulders. 10 minutes later, Maple Grove Avenue looked like a scene from a crime drama. To patrol cars rolled up, lights flashing, and officers Chen and Williams stepped out looking slightly confused. Patricia practically sprinted across her lawn to meet them, her voice carrying across the entire street. Thank goodness you're here, officers. That woman there, she pointed dramatically at Sarah, has been illegally using water for the past 20 minutes. I have photographic evidence. She actually pulled out her phone and started swiping through what must have been dozens of pictures. As HOA president, I demand you cite her immediately. Officer Chen, bless his patient soul, looked from Patricia to Sarah, who was still holding the demonstration hose, to Captain Rodriguez, who was now walking over with expression that could melt steel before anyone could speak. Another vehicle pulled up. It was the fire department's administrative SUV, and out stepped Fire Chief Rodriguez himself, Captain Rodriguez's uncle and a 30-year veteran who did not suffer fools. Gladly the chief took in the scene, the police cars, the gathering crowd. Patricia still waving her phone around, and his expression went from confused to furious in about 2 seconds flat. Chief Rodriguez walked straight up to the officers, his boots clicking on the pavement with military precision. Officers, I'm Chief Rodriguez, Riverside Fire Department. Can You explain why you're interrupting our scheduled public safety demonstration. Officer Williams started to explain about the water usage complaint when the chief cut him off with a raised hand. He turned to Patricia, and I swear the temperature dropped 10, ma'am, he said, in a voice that could freeze molten lava. Are you the one who called in this false report? Patricia, for maybe the first time in her life, actually took a step back. It's not false, she sputtered. She's using water during a drought advisory. I have it all documented. The chief's eyes narrowed. This drill was approved by the city council, the water department, and notified to your HOA board 2 weeks ago. We have all the permits on file. More importantly, you've just committed a crime by knowingly filing a false police report and interfering with emergency services personnel during an official operation. Patricia's face went from purple to white in record time, but she was using a regular garden hose, not department equipment. The chief turned to Sarah, who I noticed was trying very hard not to smile. Firefighter Johnson, he used her formal title, making it clear she was there in an official capacity. Were you demonstrating approved fire suppression techniques using minimal water as outlined in your drill plan? Yes, sir, Sarah replied crisply. Approximately 2 gallons total for the foam demonstration, well under the 5-gallon limit specified in our permit. The chief nodded and turned back to Patricia. Ma'am, you've wasted city resources, interrupted a public safety drill, and potentially discouraged your neighbors from learning life-saving techniques. Officers, I'll be filing a formal complaint with your department and the city attorney's office. By now, pretty much the entire neighborhood had gathered to watch the drama unfold. Patricia was looking around desperately for support, but found none. Even her usual flying monkeys from the HOA board were avoiding eye contact. But I'm the HOA president, she said weakly. I was just trying to enforce the rules. Chief Rodriguez stepped closer, and Patricia actually stumbled backward. Your rules don't supersede city permits or public safety, ma'am, and I strongly suggest you familiarize yourself with the legal definitions of harassment and filing false reports. The penalties include fines up to $5,000 and potential jail time. Officer Chen, who'd been taking notes this whole time, cleared his throat. Ma'am, he said to Patricia, the chief is correct. Filing a false report is a misdemeanor under state law given the circumstances and the chief's statement. We'll need to document this incident. You may be contacted by the district attorney's office. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. This is ridiculous, she finally managed. I was just doing my job. A voice from the crowd piped up. It was Margaret, from 2 houses down, usually too timid to speak up at meetings. No, Patricia, you were harassing the nicest couple on our street because you're on some kind of power trip that seemed to open the floodgates. Suddenly everyone was talking at once, sharing their own stories of Patricia's overreach, the time she fined the Andersons for having their daughter's Girl Scout troop sell cookies in their driveway, the way she measured everyone's holiday decorations with a tape measure, how she tried to ban kids from playing basketball in their own driveways after 7 p.m. Chief Rodriguez held up a hand for silence. Folks, I think this is a matter for your HOA board to handle internally. Officers, are we done here? Officer Chen nodded, closing his notepad after getting Patricia's information. The patrol cars left, but not before Officer Williams quietly told Sarah he appreciated what she did for the community. Chief Rodriguez shook Sarah's hand, gave Patricia one last withering look, and headed back to his vehicle. As he was leaving, he called out loud enough for everyone to hear, "Firefighter Johnson, excellent work as always. I'll make sure the city council hears about your dedication despite the unnecessary obstacles." Patricia slunk back to her house, but the damage was done within hours. The Maple Grove HOA Facebook page exploded. Someone had filmed the entire interaction and it went viral in our little suburb. The video showed everything: Patricia calling 911, the chief stressing down the neighbors, finally speaking up. By that evening, over 50 formal complaints had been filed with the HOA board about Patricia's behavior. An emergency board meeting was called for the following Tuesday. I've never seen the community center that packed. It was standing room only, with neighbors lined up to speak. During the public comment period, one by one they shared their grievances. Tom Morrison talked about being fined for having the wrong shade of beige on his shutters. The Patel family described how Patricia had tried to ban their dually decorations as unapproved lighting. Even sweet old Mrs. Chen stood up and revealed that Patricia had threatened to find her for her grandchildren's chalk drawings on her own driveway. The board members looked increasingly uncomfortable as the stories piled up. Finally, the board president, a mild-mannered accountant named David, called for order. It's clear we need to address the concerns raised by the community, he said carefully. Patricia, sitting at the board table, tried to defend herself. Everything I've done has been in accordance with the HOA bylaws, she insisted. I was elected to enforce standards, and that's what I've done. But David was already shaking his head. Patricia, you called the police on an approved fire department drill. You've exposed the HOA to potential legal liability. The fire chief has filed a formal complaint with the city, and we've been informed that the district attorney's office is reviewing the false report charge. Patricia's lawyer, because of course she brought a lawyer, tried to interject, but David continued. Furthermore, the water department has conducted an investigation and found no violation by the Johnson family. In fact, they commended firefighter Johnson for promoting water-wise fire suppression techniques. The city council has also sent a letter expressing concern about HOA overreach potentially interfering with public safety initiatives. We simply cannot continue with UNN enforcement role. The vote was swift and unanimous. Patricia was stripped of all enforcement authority, effectively removing her ability to issue fines or citations. She could remain on the board until the next election, but only in an advisory capacity. But that wasn't the end of it. The district attorney's office did indeed pursue the false report charge. Patricia ended up pleading no contest to avoid jail time, but she was hit with a fine of $3,000 plus court costs, 200 hours of community service, and 12 months of probation. The judge, in what I can only assume was cosmic justice, having a sense of humor, assigned her community service to be completed with the fire department's public education program. When Patricia heard she'd be spending her Saturdays helping teach fire safety under Sarah's supervision, her face turned a shade of purple. I didn't think was medically possible. She actually stomped her foot like a toddler and shrieked that this was unconstitutional, which caused the judge to add an extra 50 hours for contempt of